Blah 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 blah.
Doing okay there, buddy?
Hello and welcome to the Lab Maniacs. I'm Cameron. Today I'm joined by Dan, and today
Hi.
we are today we're doing something new. We're calling it a strategy spotlight. Our goal of this is to take a close look at a particular strategy, kind of go over the history and the development of that strategy, see where it fits in the competitive EDH format, and then kind of look at possible evolutions of the strategy, possibly look at things where there's holes in it, maybe look at broader color availability, so you only have to have one color, or currently it's not available in that color, things like that. So today, our first one, we are looking at Protean Hulk. Dan, why don't you tell us about the card?
Protean Hulk is awesome. He's a big, giant green creature. I think he costs 5 generic and 2 green. It's mostly irrelevant. He has some
True.
degree of power and toughness, which are also mostly irrelevant. And he has a beautiful text box that features a lovely death trigger. So when Protean Hulk dies, you can search your library for up to 6 converted mana cost worth of creatures and put them onto the battlefield.
That sounds really strong.
It's incredibly powerful.
But he really doesn't do anything while he's on the battlefield.
No,
He's
he does. I mean, I guess he blocks. Honestly, he'd probably be a better card with 0 toughness. But what are you gonna
Yeah,
do?
or evoke.
Oh
uh,
God, that'd be so good.
it would. It would. We'd
Never
have
gonna
Revel
happen.
Arc Part 2. Oh yeah. No. Card's never gonna get a functional reprint. Uh,
That's for sure.
so with that super powerful graveyard trigger, are there any like requirements or things we have to look out for when we're actually trying to use it?
Well, as the text of the ability says, you do have to be able to search your library. So cards like Aven Mind Sensor, not Rest in Peace, Stranglehold, and similar prevent you from being able to actually search
Mm-hmm.
functionally. So you can't get those cards out. Because it puts them into play from your library, a card like Grafdigger's Cage will also stop it.
Yeah.
And because
Yep.
Protean Hulk does actually have to die, any replacement effect Graveyard Hate, like Rest in Peace or Leyline of the Void, will also be able to stop him, because instead of dying, he is actually just exiled from where he goes. So you have to be able to search your
Yeah.
library. You have to have static ability access to your graveyard. And you
Mm-hmm.
actually have to have pieces in your deck to be able to fetch with the Protean Hulk trigger to combo off. So, like, if those pieces are in your hand, you're not going to be able to get them out of your library.
Yeah. Makes sense. So it's really strong. It's got a lot of capability behind it, but it costs a lot. Now, I assume we're talking about this card because it's really good. What are ways we can use to get around that 7 CMC starting price tag?
Well, there's actually a whole variety of ways. You have the very common way of cheating on mana cost, which is reanimation effects. You can entomb a Protean
Yeah,
Hulk and then reanimate it, which costs you 2 black mana over 2 spells. You can use,
7 life.
other reanimation spells.
Hmm.
You can also put it into play using mana cheating effects like Natural Order or Eldritch Evolution, which are
Oh.
generally seen in like Legacy Elves decks. Eldritch Evolution is also in like Oath Tasigur because it lets you
Hmm.
Eldritch Evolution the Tasigur into what is it? Tidespout Tyrant
Tight
is
Spout
the
Tyrant.
card of choice. That card's sweet, by the way. That whole combo's sweet. But that's
It
off
is.
topic. And you can also use the Legacy Reanimator backup plan of Show and Tell it into play. Although with this particular card, the friend of Show and Tell in Legacy is Sneak Attack, and that works even better because Sneak Attack
Much more
gives you
useful.
a 1-card cheat on mana and kill it. You can also use the best 1-card cheat on mana cost and kill it that we currently have access to, which is the backbone of the majority of Hulk decks and gives them part of their name, which is Flash. Flash here being the 2-mana instant that costs generic and a blue that basically lets you put Hulk into play and kill it faster than abilities can trigger because he dies as part of the resolution of the spell.
Now, didn't Flash get changed at one point? It was stuck in with like a time vault as power level eroded and Lion's Eye Diamond and all that.
Yeah, so way back when. History lesson. I should put on my tweed jacket, but I don't own one. So let's go back to 2007. On May 1st, Wizards removed the power level errata that they had placed on Flash, which specified that if you did not pay the difference in mana cost, which is part of the resolution of Flash that like most people don't honestly remember because it's irrelevant, the creature would not actually enter the battlefield. What this means is, when you cast Flash, you have to, technically, according to the resolution of the spell, pay the difference in mana cost from Flash's mana cost to the creature's mana cost. If you don't, then you just put it directly into your graveyard. So it was more like an entomb from your hand, or a discard a creature from your hand.
So like the original purpose of Flash was just so you could put a creature out at instant speed.
Yeah, like Savage Summoning, or whatever the older version of Savage Summoning is. When Wizards removed the power level errata, they removed the part where it doesn't enter the battlefield, because on the card it says, put it into play, which means put that card onto the battlefield. So when they removed that, this turned on the ability for the creature to trigger enter the battlefield effects, and trigger leaves the battlefield effects, without having to pay the extra mana. So now Flash says, pay 1 and a blue, put a creature from your hand onto the battlefield. Then, if you don't pay that difference in mana cost, you sacrifice it, which turns on ETBs and sacrifice triggers, or death triggers, which makes a world of difference. So much so that after 1 month of this power level errata being removed, part of this combo got banned. So if you look at, I believe it was GP Columbus,
2007. Yep.
Yeah, back in late May 2007. This was the only big tournament for which Flash Hulk was actually legal. We did a lot of digging. Cameron especially trolled forum posts. We weren't able to find any total pool numbers. What we do know, 3 of the 8 top 8 decks were Flash Hulk decks, all of which I believe were Kikijiki Karmic Guide Flash Hulk decks.
Believe so.
And Hulk was banned like a week later in Legacy. Flash was banned a week later in Legacy for turning this on. So while we don't know if it was oppressive to the field, if it was warping the meta, we know Wizards believed this to be the case. And a lot of players at the time actually believed that they were actually pretty split from what we could tell. So that's 2007. Flash Hulk as a combo was legal for 1 event, and it was immediately banned. Protean Hulk itself was banned in Commander in September 2008. So half a year later, year and a half later or so. This is about 2 years after it was printed. It was banned because they thought it was getting to be a bit too oppressive, and they honestly felt a little bad about the ban because a lot of people played it fair, as they said, which is the don't win off the Hulk immediately kind of plays.
So just using it to get some 6 CMC of value after the creature dies.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a 5/5 that replaces itself, sort of. So fast forward to April 2017, which you may remember is a time that we've been around for.
Yes.
Hulk was unbanned. The reasoning for this was that creatures in graveyards are easier to deal with in 2017, and in casual play, primarily they'll just see those value Hulks. Those Hulks for a replacement set of creatures to make up for the fact that your fatty died.
Yeah. And during this time, Flash has never been banned in Commander. So,
You'll also note that the one real application that Flash would have is in Flash Rector decks, where you flash an Academy Rector and then grab Omniscience. Never once really popped up in prominence in competitive EDH.
mhm.
So, without Protean Hulk, Flash isn't that great. And without Flash, Protean Hulk is, well, it's actually not bad. But the two of them together make for an incredibly powerful 2-card combo that is banned in Legacy and was banned in Commander for the vast majority of the lifetime of the format.
Yeah, yeah, it has been. So if we aren't looking at the value creature trigger, what kind of game-winning combo are we looking at with Protean Hulk?
So there's actually a couple. If you look at Protean Hulk's Death Trigger, it allows you to get any 6 CMC worth of creatures. This means you can get 1 6, 2 3s, infinity zeros, and another 6 CMC of creatures. So there's a lot, obviously there's a lot you can do with that. There's probably like 6,000 creatures in Magic that are legal in competitive EDH. So it helps to divide the Hulk piles into 2 different categories, at least in my mind it helps. You have piles that are looking to just use Hulk once. These are going to be your single Hulk trigger piles, where you will kill your Protean Hulk, you will get 6 CMC worth of creatures, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not trying to do anything else, you're just using that 6 CMC to win the game. The
Wow.
most prominent of these currently is the Breakfast Hulk deck that Siggy brewed up the day Hulk was unbanned, within hours of finding out. This uses the age-old Cephalid Breakfast combo, where you take Cephalid Illusionists and Nomad's Encore. Nomad's Encore lets you use a 0-mana activated ability that targets a creature to target Cephalid Illusionist. You do this repeatedly, and you get to mill your deck. So this is similar to Hermit Druid, basically.
Mm-hmm. Didn't he have Hermit Druid in that deck as well?
Yeah, it actually uses both, because they're incredibly powerful, redundant copies of take deck, flip to graveyard effects.
So we took an existing powerful legacy strategy and moved in an additional one that complements the same combo set, and then just threw them all together, and it's just a super fast, very resilient combo deck now.
Pretty much, yeah. The really nice part of the Cephalid Breakfast combo and where it shines in this format is that it's 3 CMC worth of creatures, which means you still have 3 more CMC that you can get with a Hulk trigger. Most commonly, this will grab the 2 CMC Grand Abolisher, which turns off nearly every form of instant speed graveyard hate in the format.
Everything. Yeah, everything but like Fairy Macabre from the hand, and like a Cabal
And, yeah,
Pit
static
to kill the Grand Abolisher.
Yeah. It is brutal. And that's still only 5 CMC. So the last one is frequently like Hapless Researcher, which works into exactly how that combo wins, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. So Cephalid Breakfast is the most efficient single Hulk use combo in the format right now. There are some others, but they don't really see as much play. So let's move to the other pile of Hulk triggers, which are going to be combos that involve triggering your Hulk multiple times. There's a lot of different kinds of these, and these actually are the ones that most outright draw from those original GP winning lists. You'll use cards like
Splinter Twin lists and things like that.
Yeah, so you use cards like Karmic Guide or Phyrexian Delver. So once your Hulk dies, you put in that 5 CMC reanimation effect and bring your Hulk back. And with your 6th CMC off the trigger, you usually get a sack outlet, like Viscera Seer is the most commonly played one. But there's other stuff you can do in other colors if you have to. So with additional Hulk triggers, you can get more stuff. Usually it only should take the one additional Hulk trigger to be able to win, but you have a pretty solid amount of redundancy on that slot. You have Phyrexian Delver, you have Karmic Guide, you have Body Double that works. So right there you've got 3 5 CMC cards, so you can net yourself 1 mana spells and then grab 6 at the end, which gives you like 8 CMC, or 9 CMC worth of like business that you can use.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of ways to recur your Hulk and get additional triggers off.
Like you could just
Phantasmal Image is
clone,
one that, yeah,
you could just clone
exactly.
your karmic guide again and again and again, and just get extra triggers each time.
Exactly. And Phantasmal Image here being the most mana efficient one that actually gets played in a surprising amount of decks. I use that in one of
Yeah,
my multi-Hulk decks that I play.
because that kind of lets you sneak an extra 4 CMC creature in if you need to pull out like an Academy Rector, and then do another Hulk trigger.
Exactly. It's pretty cool. Hulk has a lot of versatility. Who'd have guessed?
Maybe know when you can just, I mean, it kind of feels a little bit like Doomsday in that you're searching for a set list of 5 cards. You're looking for a set of 6 CMC and how you can kind of puzzle it together with what you have in your deck, what you have in your graveyard, what you have in your hand, if you have enough redundancy. I mean, if things are in your graveyard, you might be able to reanimate them. What about if they get stuck in your hand? Are there ways of getting around that, or do you just have to wait to like time twister your hand away?
Yeah, that's the trickiest part of the piles that often get played. It was the issue that the original Boonweaver Carador deck had. If you draw your Karmic Guide, you're in a
You're just screwed.
terrible spot. Hulk
You're really
actually
slow
makes
at that
that
point.
easier, though. There's a piece of tech that those old Legacy decks played, which is Body Snatcher. When
Mm-hmm.
Body Snatcher enters the battlefield, you get to exile a card from your
Yeah.
hand, and when Body Snatcher dies, I believe, you get to put it into play.
Yep.
So you actually get to like cheat on mana a little bit. If your 5 mana Karmic Guide or your 5 mana Kiki Jiki is in your hand, it only takes the 4 mana Body Snatcher to be able to get that out with the Hulk pile, which is pretty cool. Not necessarily relevant a lot of the time, but it's
Well,
neat.
that kind of brings up another point. So we've got Flash in blue, we've got Hulk in green, we've got Karmic Guide in white, we've got Body Snatcher in black, and we've got Kiki Jiki in red. Are all of these needing to be so diverse in your color format? Or, I mean, are there some that are just single color or two color? How do all those combos fit in?
As with everything in Magic, not all colors are created equal.
Yeah.
There are lots of ways that you can actually win with Hulk. Not just setting up some sort of a finisher like the Cephala Breakfast combo, but outright win on the spot with that card. One of the more commonly played ones actually only requires the addition of black to your Protean Hulk. So this can be
Okay.
done in green, black, X, X, whatever. This
Hmm.
one uses a sack outlet, primarily Viscera Seer, since you have to be in black for the second card, which is Machias the Unhallowed. Um,
So
Machias
you
and
want to get stuff
Triskelion was
undying.
an
Yep.
old standby combo that
Mike
got
Trek.
used a lot. Yeah, Mike and Trike. But with the printing of Walking Ballista, we've actually gained a more efficient, in terms of mana cost, way of winning with him. It does require a sack outlet. Triskelion did not, because Machias pumps the Walking Ballista up past a 0/0, blah, 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 blah. So, with Machias in play, with Walking Ballista in play, and with Viscera Seer in play, you can sack your Walking Ballista because it had no +1/+1 counters because it ended the battlefield off a trigger, meaning it had no +1/+1 counters on it.
Yeah.
It has the ability to undie from Machias, so it comes back with a +1/+1 counter. You blast somebody with a +1/+1 counter, sack it to Viscera Seer, it had no +1/+1 counters on it, it undies again. Excuse me.
Okay.
And you repeat this combo. So with the addition of excuse me. With the addition of just black to your Protean Hulk, you can outright win the game off of Phyrexian Delver and Viscera Seer, second pile, Machias the Unhallowed, Walking Ballista. Which
Oh, wow.
means which means you can do this combo in green black, you can do it in blue green black, you can do
So you
it
have
in
Flash.
other combos of black and green.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets played in all of them. Veryl's Hulk is a 2-color, pretty dedicated Protean Hulk this combo deck that
Mm-hmm.
uses Veryl's the Scar Striped
I
in the
believe that
command
is.
zone to give redundancy on the sack outlet effect because you can't cast Flash in green black. You do
Mm-hmm.
have to put your Protean Hulk into play and then kill it, which means having access to a guaranteed 3 mana sack outlet is actually really useful.
Yeah, so you don't have to then try to hope you get that one drop black creature or
Yeah,
find an
exactly.
artifact.
Exactly.
Makes sense. So, there's other colors we can talk about in just a little bit, but I wanted to go back to something before. You said we had Lab Maniac, and that's one way to win. We empty our library, and Breakfast Hulk will win off a Lab Maniac. Your other way is that you talked about is through pinging people to damage them. Are there other ways that we can win with Protean Hulk?
Yeah, absolutely. The ways you can win are as varied as, the creature's abilities and magic, which is quite a few. But outside of non-combat damage, replacement effect win conditions, there's one more big one that is commonly seen, and that's going to be actual factual combat damage. And this is how the legacy builds that top-aided and won GP Columbus did it. You use Kikijiki and Karmic Guide, which together provide a nice little combo if you have a sack outlet. So with a sack outlet and Karmic Guide as your first Hulk pile, you bring your Hulk back. Kill off the Hulk to get more stuff. You're going to get a Kikijiki here, and something else. It doesn't really matter. I
Don't
think
really
they
need
used a
anything.
protection effect, that bodyguard of some sort, benevolent bodyguard, I believe. But you activate Kikijiki, targeting Karmic Guide. With that trigger on the stack, you'll sacrifice Kikijiki. Karmic Guide copy enters the battlefield, brings back Kikijiki. That Karmic Guide copy now has haste.
Mm-hmm.
Repeat this for unbounded Karmic Guides and beat your opponent's faces in with a bunch of little flying angels.
Seems good.
So combat damage works too.
Mm-hmm. There, I think there was one other one, which is what, Death Hulk, that sees some play, which is just life loss. I think the Walking Ballista version will get you a little bit better because you can kill off a creature if it's causing problems for you before you have to kill your opponents. But all in all, those are
Yes.
most of the really relevant Protean Hulk wins. Um, from those, are there really big decks that we're currently seeing in the format?
Absolutely. There's obviously some of these are going to be stronger than others. As I mentioned, the ability for the Cephalid Breakfast combo to include Grand Abolisher, which shuts down the majority of ways of interacting with it, means that is, in my opinion, the strongest Hulk deck out there right now, because it's the fastest and because it is the most protected once you do go off. If you cannot interact with Flash on the stack and do not have a Fairy Macabre in your hand, once Flash resolves, you're dead. Just
Yeah,
outright. There's just
because
about nothing you can do.
the resolution of Flash, then your trigger happens, and they have. Well, they could also theoretically interact with the Protean Hulk trigger.
Yeah, I suppose so. But
But
that
then
also requires two very specific cards that are still not super
very
commonly played.
yeah yeah,
It's very
uh,
difficult. There's only a handful of cards that can interact.
and then you have a Grand Abolisher in play, and you're just
Yeah.
yay, I win.
The major downsides of Breakfast Hulk here are that it does have big issues with static graveyard hate in
Mm-hmm.
Rest in Peace effects. Well, that's mostly
Turn
it.
zero leyline is a really big
Turn
problem for
turn
them.
zero that does that to most decks.
True, 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 true.
Other decks that are currently seeing play, you have the Hulk Weaver deck that I've been working on with Lil Brother, which uses Karmic Guide and cards like Phantasmal Image, Safi Eric's Daughter. You do some of that old bouncy nonsense from the Boonweaver Carador list, basically. This is
And those
the
are
next evolution of
mm,
that deck. Blue giving
you're
you a whole lot of good options.
you're eventually working towards like a Zolaport Cutthroat Blood Artist with Sapphire Daughter loops.
Yeah, once
So
you basically will juggle Hulk triggers with the Karmic Guide and the Phantasmal Image to the point where you can get your Zulaport Cutthroat or Blood Artist,
Blood Artist,
one
yep.
of your death trigger payout spells,
Mm-hmm.
to cycle your Safi and your Karmic Guide, because the two of those provide unbounded death triggers with a sack outlet. You can also
Okay.
actually just outright build a Bomberman combo if you want to. Although that does require Trinket Mage in the deck, which I'm not currently on, but you can do. Downsides this one has, it is soft to all graveyard hate, which is like
Yeah,
the Breakfast Hulk combo, but outright worse in every way.
because it can lose to like a Tormod's Crypt.
Yeah, exactly. And unlike the old Boonweaver Carador lists, when this loses to a Tormod's Crypt, it loses to a Tormod's Crypt.
Really hard.
Yeah. Luckily, that's why Razaketh got printed, so I could actually have a nice backup win con. But that's beside the point. Next
He's a
up
big demon.
is...
Yep.
Yeah, he's probably going to get his own strategy spotlight soon.
Mm-hmm.
Bug Sidisi. This is Sidisi Brood Tyrant. Old Hermit Druid combo deck. Use Hermit Druid, do things. It used backups like Food Chain a while ago because you can Food Chain Sidisi triggers to mill your deck as a redundant backup for, or as a redundant copy of Hermit Druid.
So is this a evolution of like Lime Blues Bug City C Hermit Druid combo deck?
He's the one playing it.
All right.
Once Flash Hulk came back, you don't really need to play Food Chain because it was always like the sloppiest win con in Sidisi anyways. Flash Hulk gives you the ability to just continue using your Hermit Druid as an outlet. So you can do Hermit Druid, you can do Deathrite Shaman, and you can do Mogus's Marauder. Mogus's Marauder enters the battlefield, and you get to give target creatures equal to your Devotion to Black haste. You pick Deathrite Shaman and Hermit Druid to give haste to. Deathrite Shaman gives you a mana. Hermit Druid gives you your deck in your library. Win off of Necrotic Ooze, most likely, because Lime Blue has a strange ooze fetish. So that's a nice addition to a deck that works with basically the pieces that were already in the deck. You have to add a couple of pieces in, Protean Hulk and Flash, and Mogus's Marauder. So you replace one dead 3 CMC card for another one, and you add a 2-card combo that wins off of 2 mana.
So very similar to Breakfast Hulk, where you took an existing Hermit Druid strategy and stuffed in a Protean Hulk combo. You're just taking an existing strategy, and rather than expanding it to more colors for rather than opening yourself up to possibly more mana variants, you're sticking with your same color pie and refining your existing strategy so it's a more consistent deck. Seems good.
Yeah, exactly. There's also other more slightly experimental that are all, or experimental decks, I should say, that are all being worked on and improved. You have Two Hand Touch working on a Hulk Ball deck, which is basically Sneak Attack Hulk in Bug Red.
Okay.
That wins with the Kiki Jiki Phyrexian Delver combo kills. You have Biopowers Tazri Food Chain Breakfast Hulk deck, which is basically the Breakfast Hulk combo added into your Food Chain Tazri shell, which gives you a whole bunch of very efficient, very...
Is that the Goblin Dark Dwellers deck that Dread returns Dark Dwellers to then cast Yogg Will, and then from Yogg Will plays enough mana to then cast your Food Chain from your graveyard, and then Food Chain off with your graveyard with your whole library in your graveyard?
That is one such deck, yes. That is one of the ways it wins. It can also just do Lab Maniac and win, but, to each their own.
Okay.
It's pretty sweet, honestly. You've also got... yeah. You've also got the Veryl's Hulk deck that I mentioned, which is just black-green, focused on cutting down the amount of colors it needs and doing as much as it can to increase the redundancy on those slots, which is why you have the Veryls in the command zone. And basically, like every green and black tutor for all that stuff you have. No Flash, but Veryls.
And you're also a little stronger against stacks decks because you're not opening yourself up necessarily as much to things like Blood Moon or Back to Basics. I mean, you're going to have those, but you're going to have, because you're only 2 colors, you can run basics and you don't have to worry about it as much.
Yeah, because you're not a Hermit Druid.
That too. Yeah.
Is the biggest wallet warrior Hulk deck, in my opinion, because it's in 2 very easy non-blue colors. So
Makes it a
it
lot
it
cheaper.
works pretty well. Yeah, there's also like super fringe stuff like Sans Black Twin that I think you've been working on, which uses
Hmm.
Phyrexian Dreadnought as your sack outlet to do
Yeah.
Kiki Karmic Guide stuff.
So there is a notable thing with Protean Hulk in that if you're not in black and you need a sack outlet, you do weird things. A common one for blue is Sidisi's Faithful, which is a just one blue 0/4 creature with exploit. When it exploits a creature, you can return a creature from play to your hand. So you like play Sidisi's Faithful and sack your Protean Hulk to return Sidisi's Faithful back to your hand so that you have another sack outlet later.
Exploit, for those of you not familiar with
Sure.
Khan's block draft formats, is a
Sure.
mechanic where when it enters the battlefield, you may choose to sacrifice a creature you control. If you do, effect.
Yes, exactly. And then the route that I've gone is with Phyrexian Dreadnought. You get your first trigger, pulls out a Karmic Guide and a Phyrexian Dreadnought. Phyrexian Dreadnought is a 1 mana 12/12 that says when it enters play, you can sacrifice up to 12 mana worth of creatures, or yeah, 12 CMC worth of creatures, or is it 12 power? No, it's 12 power.
12 power.
Yeah. Phyrexian Dreadnought, sacrifice up to 12 power worth of creatures. Otherwise, sacrifice Phyrexian Dreadnought. So I stack that below Karmic Guide. I use Karmic Guide to return Protean Hulk. And then I sack both Protean Hulk and Phyrexian Dreadnought to Phyrexian Dreadnought's trigger. If you don't have 12 CMC or 12 power worth of creatures, you can't sack Dreadnought. So you just send it. It doesn't care if you sack more. So you sack Protean Hulk and Dreadnought to then get a Skirk Prospector and Kiki Jiki. Skirk Prospector says sacrifice a goblin, add a red to your mana pool. And then you create the same Kiki Jiki Karmic Guide loop that they used in the GP. Kiki Jiki Karmic Guide, sack Kiki Jiki, Karmic Guide trigger comes in, returns Kiki Jiki, rinse repeat till you have infinite attackers. But yes, it's outside of black. Protean Hulk triggers are difficult if you can't win immediately, is a note.
Luckily, outside of black, competitive EDH decks are tricky and can't succeed immediately because you have no consistency outside of like Yisan and Teferi and stuff like that. I guess Sovala too, but yeah. Adding black as a prerequisite for Protean Hulk is almost something that's okay to do because adding black to your competitive EDH card pool is almost a prerequisite for the format.
For a large majority, yeah.
Almost.
So
Almost a prerequisite for the format.
So there are some color combinations where Protean Hulk is a challenge. And due to the amazing competitive EDH community, there are several different places where people have posted a list of combos by color where you can get the best competitive based results. Unfortunately, things like mono green ends up with only having a sack outlet and malaria and a woodfall primus. So you don't actually win the game, but you destroy all non-land permanents.
And
But
it requires pre-Hulk setup.
yeah, a lot of them will say you need a color and you need a sack outlet in play. And having a sack outlet in play for non-black is usually a artifact base sack outlet, like Ashnod's Altar, Altar of Dementia, Phyrexian Altar. There aren't really many. And that is actually one of the places where Protean Hulk could get expanded in the future. If green got a free sack outlet that didn't require any mana, didn't require a tap, that would open up a few more combos. Same for blue. Red has a few. They're more corner case. White definitely doesn't have any right now.
Although, given some of the design, let's say, color pie bends that we saw in Ixalan with white, namely the Loyalist Vanguard? Whatever the pay for life activated ability on that white card was to like get first strike or indestructibility or something like that was, it's actually theoretically possible that we may see a white sack outlet sometime in the next couple of years on a
And
creature. Maybe it wasn't
Adanto
Ixalan, maybe it
Vanguard.
was... Yeah, that
No, it
was
was
Adon.
Ixalan. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Adanto Vanguard, as long as it's attacking, it gets +2/+0. Pay for life. Adanto. Adanto.
Adonato?
No.
Whatever. That's irrelevant.
Danto Vanguard. Yeah.
We saw
Gains
a life
indestructible in time of
payment
turn,
effect in white. That
which is not
is...
normal.
No. And it honestly, it makes sense to me that we may eventually see a, like, sacrifice another creature, target creature gets protection from blah, 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 or something like that in white at some point in the future. So, in terms of where we will see this effect, maybe in the next color pie break, my bet is on white, which might give the Safi Hulk decks a big leg up, because that then gives you a creature that you can tutor for with your green tutors that will combo with your pieces.
And then
But
that would let you easier do it in like Bant if you wanted
yeah,
to go that route. So you
yeah.
have fewer colors overall. Okay.
But yeah, I think if we do see one, I believe it'll be a white sack outlet on a creature.
Something to look forward in the future. So
Yeah.
just kind of wrapping this all up. We've got Protean Hulk. It is an amazing combo enabler. The big upsides are with Flash. It is incredibly mana efficient. You're getting a 7 CMC death trigger for 2 mana, 1 and a blue. It's card efficient as far as what you need in your hand. It's not necessarily slot efficient. Some of these slots go pretty far. You need 7, 8, 9, 10 cards in your deck devoted to this combo, but you only need to get 2. You need to get Flash and Hulk. So those are the really big strong parts about it, and why it has kind of, it's really made a spot in competitive EDH right now. The big downsides, like I said, slot inefficiency. You've got a lot of cards, and then if they get stuck in your hand, you're having to work around it. Like good old Carador days when Karmic Guide's in your hand, you have a bad day. It's the same thing with Protean Hulk. Now, if you're in some colors, you can add another slot to put things like Body Snatcher in. Then you have to figure out where to put that in your Protean Hulk chain. And then you also need to have your graveyard available. You can't have replacement effects. And then you have to work in your combo based off of where everybody else at the table is. So with Breakfast Hulk, they have to respond immediately. But with things like Mikaeus the Unhallowed and Walking Ballista, if they have Graveyard Hate, they can actually interrupt your combo. And you have to be aware and be ready for that. And that's pretty much most of what we're going to find with Protean Hulk right now. Do you have anything else, Dan, to add to that?
I think Protean Hulk is in a great spot. I think the graveyard hate that you have the options of playing are lower than they used to be because of the presence of Breakfast Hulk as a deck. So
Yeah.
your graveyard hate is ought to either be static and large, or be Fairy Macabre, which means that a lot of the other Hulk decks do have a bit of room to flex their muscles, because Protean Hulk into Cephalid Breakfast is reducing the efficacy of those slower or less specific graveyard hate pieces.
Like Nihil Spellbomb, Tormod's Crypt.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that, yeah.
I do think that static graveyard hate is in a great spot right now because of the presence of Hulk decks. So if you're going to play a deck that's heavy on graveyard hate, or a deck that doesn't necessarily require its graveyard as much, I think Rest in Peace is an awesome card. And I think Leyline of the Void is also an awesome card if you're not playing a super fast ad nauseum deck. But basically, where this would boil down to is, I think you should either play a deck like Breakfast Hulk, which is very fast, very powerful, and very resilient, or you should play a deck that has a very well-defined game plan against decks like Breakfast Hulk. Whether this means you run cards like Dispel instead of Negate because it can respond to that turn 1 flash, or whether it means you run cards like Leyline of the Void in Blood Pod, which means that you can turn 0 by yourself at least 2 or 3 turns while the Hulk deck finds a way around that.
Yeah. The one thing that we didn't really hit was how Hulk is affecting other decks in the format negatively. One of the big things that this graveyard hate is doing is it's also reducing the viability of reanimator decks that aren't specifically on Hulk, because more people are running graveyard hate just because they have to. It's kind of like the affinity effect in modern. Everybody has artifact hate. So if you have a deck that's primarily based around artifact combos, you're just getting an extra free 5 slots in everybody's sideboard that they use to hate out your deck because they're hating out affinity. In this case, if you're running a lot of Reanimator, people are going to have more answers to it than they did pre-Protean Hulk. And it's something to be
Yeah,
aware of.
we even saw in the last gameplay video, I got gunned down trying to go off with Razaketh by
Mm-hmm.
Graveyard Hate that was included in a deck specifically to deal with Protean Hulk in the Breakfast combo.
So it's going to be pulling a few decks that may have been performing better down a little bit. And you just have to be aware of that, and maybe you adjust your deck accordingly.
All that being said, I don't believe that Protean Hulk is negatively impacting the format. I don't think it is oppressive. I do think it is absolutely a meta defining card, and it is shaping the meta of competitive EDH right now, but I don't think it's doing so in an oppressive way. It's made a lot of strategies that were previously non-viable viable again. It has made some decks that were already powerful a bit more powerful, but it hasn't really killed off any decks that already weren't on their way out the door for other reasons entirely, in my personal opinion on the matter.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I can say though that if you're in a meta that's like 50% Breakfast Hulk, it will start to feel stale pretty quickly. And if you do run into that situation, I would recommend shifting over to something like Blood Pod, where you do have those incredibly powerful static graveyard hate where you can, mull a few times to try to get that turn 0 ley line and buy yourself enough time to then drop down a Blood Moon or drop down an additional Rest in Peace, things like that. And it's something where you can choose to adapt to your metagame and try to provide a more dynamic and interesting metagame by your deck choices if you are stuck in a really heavy Breakfast Hulk area. And I believe that about wraps up everything that we really wanted to talk about with Protean Hulk. Thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, please let us know. We've got Reddit, Facebook, YouTube comments. You can hit our email as well. We will be pulling more of these out. Like Dan said, we'll be doing probably a Razaketh one coming up. Then we may look at other cards. Some potential ones would be things like Seasons Past or Twister Loop style, and talking about what you're trying to do for those as well. Again, I'm Cameron. Thanks for joining us. I was joined by Dan. And have a good day.
See ya.